So this session is around developing a national or regional plan. And that's why we have asked people to sit in their groups. So collaboration here is essential. And in the afternoon, we will think in groups about how we can support each other as we go forward. But first, to set our minds thinking in this direction, we're going to have 3 presentations. Our speakers are with us. Father Joe Agostino, known to all of us, I think, is the International Coordinator of the Vincentian Family Office. In this role, Father Joe facilitates the work of the VFO team as they reach out and support Superiors General and the international presidents of the Vincentian family, and in their support of the work around national and regional coordination councils. Father Joe also coordinates the work of the Family Collaboration Commission and of the Vincentian Family Haiti Initiative. Joe, welcome, and thank you for sharing with us. I'll just introduce our 2 other panel members, and then we'll start the presentation. Ana Maria Escaño is a National Lay Advisor of the Children of Mary, Vincentian Marian Youth of the Philippines. She is also actively involved in the Vincentian family in the areas of formation, collaboration, and systemic change. In 2017, she became a member of the International Vincentian Family Collaboration Commission, and in September this year, formed part of the International Commission for the Promotion of Systemic Change. And our final member of the panel is Andrew McKnight. Andrew is the director of DePaul, France. Andrew worked with homeless young people in the United Kingdom for many years, and then moved to Paris to open the homeless charity DePaul, France, 3 years ago. He and his team of volunteers now serve around 40 rough sleepers every day through a day center, and they also tour the streets with a mobile shower unit. Like Father Joe and Ana Maria, Andrew is also a member of the Vincentian Collaboration Commission. So we have the right people in front of us, the right people who are able to explain collaboration and how it works, and I'll ask them each to go in turn, and then at the end you're going to do something with the regional groups that we've got set up here. So I would encourage you, please, in this session to think of the questions that you might have around collaboration. So you're going to hear some things of organizational structures, the way people work together. Just think, what will that mean for me? How can I use it? What can I take away? And do I need to know more? Those are the kind of questions I think that our panel will be able to help us with. So Joe, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And thank you all for this opportunity to share with you our thoughts on using Vincentian family structures to assist in your regional planning around homelessness. I will begin with a word on international structure of the family. Ana Maria will continue with practical guidelines, and Andrew will conclude with a case study. Then we'll break into our national groups and have an opportunity to speak with one another. So that we are all beginning on the same page. When we speak of the Vincentian family, what are we referring to? Simply put, it means we are comprised of men and women, consecrated, ordained, and lay, who follow Jesus Christ in the spirit, the charism of St. Vincent de Paul. Who are we as a Vincentian family? First of all, it is important that we realize that we are comprised of over 150 active branches around the world. And within those branches, I would estimate that we have close to 2 million members. In addition to that, we have approximately another 2 million members who work with us, even though they may not be a formal part of a particular branch. And just as kind of an exercise here, how many people in the room today do not belong to a particular branch of the family, but are certainly Vincentian. Would you raise your hand? Okay, thank you. The point is that we are larger than just branches, and that there are many people right around us who follow the spirit of Vincent de Paul that we also have to recognize and consider. As a Vincentian family, we can consider ourselves as part of an international movement in the best sense of the word. We are united by a common charism, urged on by the love of Christ, and sharing in a common service to those most in need. We are united by a common commitment to serve the poor. Our collaboration is not just nice theory. It is rooted in the reality of who we are, where we are, and the gifts that we have been given to bring to the table. We also recognize that we should never do alone what is best done together. With the realities of limited resources, personnel, and the ever-changing face of poverty today, we can only make a significant impact in the fight against poverty when we join forces in a common effort to eradicate it. Thus, we commit ourselves to thinking, planning, and doing our priorities together. It is also very important that each of us as individuals, as well as all of us corporately with our branches, appreciate the gifts and the unique aspect of the charism that we bring to the table. Because this collaboration is an affirmation of all of those gifts and a willingness to share those with one another. Collaboration is more than cooperation. It implies that we think, we plan, and we prioritize together. And collaboration always needs to be fluid. Everyone cannot do everything. And based on one's own gifts and abilities, that would be their contribution to a particular effort. The family is organized and inspired and directed by the Executive Committee of the Vincentian family. It is composed of 4 permanent branches, or founding branches: the Congregation of the Mission, of which the Superior General serves as the President of the Executive Committee, AIC, the Daughters of Charity, and the Society of Vincent de Paul. In addition to those branches, there are 4 more branches which serve on the VFEC for a period of time. Currently, they are the Sisters of Charity Federation of Strasbourg, the Sisters of Charity Federation of North America, the Brothers of Mary, Mother of Mercy, and the Vincentian Congregation. So these 8 branches are the current members of the Executive Committee. They are not a juridical body, but they create enthusiasm and motivation for the branches of the family, offer common themes for reflection. They were the ones that launched this initiative on homelessness. They established the mandates for the commissions and do many other things that help to keep the family movement focused. In addition, we are served by 5 commissions. These commissions are the Commission for the Promotion of Systemic Change, Collaboration Commission, and Haiti Initiative Commission, the network that does all of our media and communications, FAMVIN, and your own newly created Homeless Alliance Commission. In February of 2018, every country or region was asked to make sure they had formed a national council so that there would be an established structure within every region or country to help promote the Vincentian family and its activities in the country. Their job is to facilitate, animate, and strengthen what goes on in the Vincentian family in a country in our services of the poor. When we speak of a regional strategy for any Vincentian family effort, we have to speak in terms of the national councils, most especially when we speak of the complexity of the homelessness issue. It is within the national councils that it is the primary place where the family gathers. It gathers to discern the needs of a particular country, to analyze the resources that it has available to meet those needs, to look at the expertise of those who are within the country to help address that, and to seek as a collaborative group the funding or the partnerships necessary both within and outside of the family. It gives us critical mass to create a project. It gives us access to political structures to assist us. And it gives us access to those in need of these services on many fronts. Homelessness, like any other major social issue, is an overwhelming and complex one. We cannot hope to be effective in our response without the support of one another on all the levels in which the Vincentian family exists. I presented the theoretical parameters of our work. That's just a picture of how we are structured, if anybody likes pictures. And Anna Maria will now speak of some of the more practical matters that must be considered as we form our regional structures.
Thank you, Father Joe. I would like to offer at this point some concrete suggestions on how we may come up with effective solutions to homelessness as a one Vincentian family working together. I would like to present two suggestions. The first suggestion, if we could form Vincentian family, local, regional, or national working teams on homelessness. This team would be the lead group in addressing homelessness in your region or country. It would be good to have representation from the different principal branches of the Vincentian family in this team. It would be good also that they will be officially designated by the Vincentian family in that country. Why? Doing this, could we have more support? Assigning of personnel, giving of financial or in-kind support, facilitating structures, or helping in the mobilization of resources in the project. Some important aspects in relation to this first suggestion. It should have a specific focus. In our case, it would be to address homelessness. Having a single focus would give the group, the team, credibility. And with credibility, it is easier to involve diverse stakeholders from different sectors of society. The second aspect, the need to establish clear goals and objectives. These goals should be clear, measurable, and definitely agreed upon by all the members in the team. And these goals will also depend on the context or situation that they are faced with, whether the issue is housing, whether it's related health and social issues that homeless persons are faced with, whether it's prevention or early intervention. So focus on one specific goal. Third aspect, to organize forums. In a forum, sharing occurs. Different participants come in, coming from different groups, private sector, government sector, and in that forum, by sharing our knowledge, our common desire, we're able to commit to our involvement, to our responsibility, and as to what role we will have in its coordination and implementation. Fourth, the formulation of an action plan. It's very important. When we formulate our action plan, it should consider our specific context, circumstances, what are our resources in the region or in the locality. Second point, our action plan should be inculturated to the experiences of the different groups of people experiencing homelessness. I remember here what Monsignor Dufay said earlier about listening. We cannot formulate a good action plan if we have not listened to the journey, to the stories, to the barriers and obstacles faced by homeless people. The experiences of young people aren't the same as adults experiencing homelessness, or of women who are experiencing domestic violence and homelessness. So we need to really practice the value, the virtue of listening. We could also make group-specific action plans so that the solutions that we are seeking to find are appropriate and adapted for different groups. For those of us who may not have started anything yet, I would suggest that we start small. And afterwards, we can replicate this experience in other localities until we reach the national level. Fifth aspect, a communications plan. It is good to keep ourselves informed. Many times we have beautiful things going on, but we forget to submit reports. We forget to inform others. Our sharing of what we have done, our communicating this information will lead to better collaboration and learning from each other. So first, of course, we need to report to our own Vincentian family in the country. We could also submit a report to the Collaboration Commission, to the Systemic Change Commission, to the FAMBIN Homeless Alliance, so we can all learn from each other's experiences. Second suggestion, if applicable, it would also be good if we can establish whether it's local, regional, or national centers that are dedicated to homelessness. Since it is a center, I would like to venture to suggest that it should be run by at least 2 professionals and a staff of volunteers so that it will be well managed. I also would like to offer some aspects that are important in this second suggestion. A legal identity. If possible, these centers should have a legal identity because of the resources that we need. Having a legal identity will allow us to mobilize those resources to make grant proposals, receive donations from different stakeholders within and outside the Vincentian family. Second aspect, if we have a center, we should train and expose our staff, both the professionals and the volunteers. They should be exposed and immersed so that they will know the concrete situation and have a better understanding of what people are going through when they're homeless. Remember, Investing in the education and capacity building for staff and volunteers will help achieve consistent and long-term results. Third, create an evidence database. We assess the data in relation to the people that we have been servicing, we have been offering our services to. This will allow us to know the where, the how, and to what extent we need to invest in order to achieve our desired objectives. Fourth, promote person-centered services. So what Monsignor Dufay said earlier, pay attention to the little details. We need to ensure that our services, our work, is centered on the needs of the individuals and the families, doing our best not to reject or turn away any person who comes to us. Paying attention to details such as their names, their stories, their unique needs. Fifth, community capacity. We build community capacity by valuing all people as contributing citizens in society, especially those who have experienced homelessness. It entails making the use of the goodwill of individuals and the community. Let us be open to new ideas, to new approaches. Financial resources or funds may be scarce, yet there is an untapped wealth of volunteer support that can come from the community itself, whether from groups of priests, groups of engineers, architects, social workers. And lastly, let us develop collaborative linkages. In other words, we not only include our own Vincentian family branches, but also other service providers, government agencies, etc. If we want to do much for the homeless, we need to explore new mechanisms for collaboration and funding. Strong collaborative linkages are very important if we want to have a flexible, quick, and integrated response to homelessness.
Heard from Father Joe on how the Vincentian family is organized and how important it is to take into account those different structures. And Anna Maria has given you some technical points to take into consideration when you develop your work. And I will now conclude, and in doing so, I'd like to share our experience at De Paul of setting up a new service for homeless people in France in collaboration with other branches of the Vincentian family. And this case study fits into the section B, really, that Anna Maria talked about. So it's setting up a local centre for the homeless in Paris. And in this case study, I'd like to suggest that how we work together is just important as what we decide to develop. And when developing any sort of plan, you've heard this many times throughout the conference, it's important to start with the needs of the poor. Services which are informed by need and which are based on reflections on the reality of people living in poverty will always endure. And it's important that we are there with the poor for the long term. In our case, at De Paul, as Vincentians, we were very alarmed and shocked at the very great visible problem of people sleeping on the streets in Paris. And so we asked ourselves the classic Vincentian question, what must be done? And then a second question, who else is working with the homeless? And thirdly, is there a place for a specific Vincentian response to this problem? So one way to start in developing your own national or regional plan might be to ask questions like this. What are the needs? What must be done? What can we as Vincentians do? How can we add to the different services and responses to homelessness that probably exist already? And when you've identified these questions, you might want to think about who you are going to involve in helping you to answer them. Back in 2011, when we started reflecting on these questions, there was no national council in France. And so we formed our own working group. National councils are now well developed, and so in your own countries or regions, you may want to think about setting up, as Joe suggested, a specific working group to look at homelessness. In setting up our group, we thought very carefully about its size and membership. Not too big, because that can make decision-making difficult. Not too small, because sometimes the people involved can feel overwhelmed and overburdened. We were also careful to bring on board people with a whole variety of experience. We wanted people who were already involved in work with the homeless, people with experience of the local area, people with experience and contacts to help us raise money, and people who could make contact with local politicians. Through the heads of the branches, we invited members from 4 of the branches to join the steering group. So we had representatives from the AIC, the SVP, the Daughters, and the CMs. But we also wanted to widen our collaboration beyond the Vincentian family. And so we also invited a representative from the local parish, someone involved in the health sector, and somebody from a local charity also working with homeless people, which has since become a very important partner. And we made sure we had room to involve homeless people themselves. So from time to time, we had somebody with experience of homelessness come to our meetings. And at other times, we went out and we talked to different homeless people in different settings, at lunch clubs, on the street, or in day centres. And once we had our group together, we had to think about drawing up some terms of reference, a sort of task list for this group. What was its role? How often should it meet? And how should we work together? We spent over 2 years working together before we actually got anything going. And at times, this felt long and slow. But as St. Vincent tells us, be patient. The beginnings of important works are always difficult. And this time together was really a grace. We had time to build relationships. We had time to really reflect on the type of service we wanted to develop. We had time to argue. We had time to fall out and then repair our differences. And I firmly believe that all of this preparatory work that we put in played a huge part in the success of what is now today a very busy day centre in Paris. And as I speak, as John said, around 40 people this morning will have been able to have a shower, wash their clothes, have breakfast, see a nurse, and spend time with our volunteers. Working together on a new service for the homeless or coming together to reflect on a national or regional plan inevitably involves collaboration with other branches of the family. And I think it's not an accident, therefore, that the 3 of us from the Collaboration Commission are in front of you today. Collaboration, of course, is so important. But we all know that when you get down to it, and when we move away from the theories and the speeches and the quotes, collaboration is in fact very messy. We're all human. We bring our own personalities and poverties with us, and so working together can be a challenge. And St. Vincent recognized this as well when he said that wherever we go, we always take ourselves and our imperfections with us. And why is collaboration messy? Well, I can think of at least 3 reasons. Firstly, collaboration doesn't always come naturally to us. In many countries, there is no established history of Vincentians collaborating together. In some places, the different branches do not know each other, and if you don't know people, it's difficult to trust them, and it's difficult to decide to work together. Lack of knowledge about each other's mission or mistrust, perhaps even based on misinformation, can lead to fears about what one branch might lose. And mistrust can spur on thoughts about what one branch might be able to gain over the others. And secondly, once we start to get to know each other, we discover that we are all, in fact, very different. United, of course, in our spirituality and in our common mission, each branch has its own history, its own traditions, its own language, its own way of working, its own way of living out our spirituality. And of course, we all know that there's no one way of being a Vincentian, and there's no branch which is better or more Vincentian than another. Thirdly, collaboration inevitably touches on questions related to power and influence, to roles and responsibilities. Who does what? Who's going to take the lead? Who will follow? Who has a say and who has the final say? Who will pay? Who has to do all the work? Who will get the credit? Who will have to take the flak when things go wrong? We encountered all of these problems in France, and I can tell you that there are no easy answers. But here are some things which, reflecting back, helped us to keep moving forwards. Strange as it may seem, and this happened completely by chance, we had our meetings sat around a circular table. And there's our circular table in the photo, and you can see Sister Danielle there. There's something very egalitarian about a round table. All of us present as equal partners, open to the comments and feedback of others around us. And the round table also reminds me of this picture, which we use a lot at De Boer International, the lovely triptych from the Vincentian Chapel in Graz in Austria, where we see St. Vincent sitting with the poor around a table with Christ at the center. So my first suggestion is, if you can, find a round table for your meetings. And sat around this round table, we were all convinced of the need of the service we had decided to develop. And we kept coming back to these needs every time we ran into disagreements. It's so useful to be able to remind yourselves, what problem are we trying to solve, what must be done, and how are we going to do it together? We made time to do things outside of our meetings. We visited other homelessness services together, we went to events together, and we went to church together. We built relationships with each other so that we could better enter into relation with the poor through our service. We set out our goals together, and we remained quite fixed on these goals. But of course, as in any new adventure, you don't always know how things are going to pan out. There's always a great deal of uncertainty. You don't have answers to all of the questions. And of course, Providence always has its part to play. And so, whilst fixed on the goals, we remained flexible about how we would reach those goals. And this meant that there was room for each person and for each branch to contribute in a way that felt honest and realistic and comfortable. Working like this demanded a great deal of humility, openness, creativity from all of us around the table. And by coming back to needs and to our goals, we were able to put aside our own egos, our own self-interest, and dare to do something brave and different for the poor. We had to recognize our own limitations, our own poverty, and Pope Francis reminds us of this in his letter for the Second World Day of the Poor, which we celebrated recently. He says, the realization that in the face of so much poverty, our capacity for action is limited, weak, and insufficient, leads us to reach out to others, so that through mutual cooperation, we can attain our goals all the more effectively. The poor do not need self-promoters, but a love that knows how to remain hidden and not think about all the good it has been able to do. At the centre must always be the Lord and the poor. And lastly, what really made the most difference to our collaborative effort was the moment when we started to serve together. It's no secret that it is the poor who evangelize us. It is in action and in service with them that we really learn to work together, to trust each other, to put aside our differences and focus instead on the person in front of us who needs our help. The result for all of this effort is that today in Paris there's now a Vincentian Day Centre for the Homeless, which has been open for 3 years, with a team of about 38 volunteers, including 9 daughters, 1 CM, 2 seminarians, 2 members of the local AIC team, and the president of the local SVP conference. We also have 3 Jesuit seminarians, Vincentian Marian Youth, De Paul and St. John's University, along with many local parishioners who join us or support our service. And we've just celebrated welcoming the 400th person. Sadly, he wasn't called Vincent. I love St. Vincent's expression when, in talking to the Daughters of Charity, he says, "The duty of daughters of our Lord who live and serve him together is to cherish, help, and bear with one another while showing mutual respect." And this word cherish, and the French original, s'entrechérir, is really quite sweet, I think. It's quite quaint. We know that we must take good care of the service of the poor, but here St. Vincent reminds us that we must also take good care of each other. We must cherish each other. So, to finish, having identified your key questions to get your plans started, having formed your group, and taken on the challenge of collaborating together, perhaps having even found a round table, look after the poor, look after each other, and good luck in developing your work.